Welcome, everyone. My name is Kim Harris. I'm the Seddon Valley Homeowners Association Treasurer, and I am going to call our Finance Committee meeting to order. And it is 7:02 p.m. For our roll call today, we have all of our committee members present. We have Jessica, Jean, Callie, Richard, Sonia, and Jacob. And so we are all here, as well as our GM, Dan Pike, our Finance Director, Joel Heverling, and our Turf Care Superintendent, Jeremy Galvin, is here as well. This committee and our board recognizes a land acknowledgement and an anti-racism statement that can be found on our website. And at this point, we need to adopt the agenda. So may I have a motion for that?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. We need a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Is that Callie?
Yes.
Okay. Was everyone able to look at the addendum of the minutes from our February meeting? And so that we need to approve those. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, and a second.
Second.
Is that Richard? Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Continuing business. I don't believe that we have any that continued on from our February meeting. So I am going to move on to our new business. We have a couple of capital requests, and I will turn the meeting over to Jeremy to explain to the committee what those requests are.
Sure. Well, thank you, Kim, and good evening, everyone. So this year we had budgeted $130,000 for capital expenditures. That was going to be 4 walk mowers. That were projected to cost $15,000, and then a fairway mower at $70,000. I had heard that prices were going to be going up compared to the earlier quoted prices that we had budgeted for prior to my arrival, and I was able to source some 4 really good condition walk mowers from my previous employer at a cost of $10,000 instead of the previously projected $60,000. They have low hours and have really been treated well. They really didn't use them only for a couple of years, so they're in really, really good shape. And the golf club I was at before treats their equipment very, very well. So then when I went to go get quotes for fairway mowers, I had learned that.
So someone is sharing their screen. Is that you?
No, it's me. I'm messing around. I don't see my image on the so I'm just trying to find
Jonathan
it.
present, not sure how Richard is. We're viewing Richard's screen.
Yeah.
Bear with me one moment here.
Okay. Richard's our host, apparently.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it upward.
So
Well,
Richard, in the bottom bar, the second item in from the left, there's something that says video, start video, and there's probably a red line.
Yeah.
You just need to click that and you should come into video.
Oh, here I handsome face.
But then there also is the more serious matter as to how he's our meeting host and able to share his screen.
Well, currently, we're currently set up so that participants in the panel here basically is currently allowed to share their screen. I can disable that if you'd like, but just in case Jeremy or somebody else needs to share.
Well, Joel does share his screen, so we want Joel to be able to share.
And I'm going to share a screen as well later on.
So
So
can I just click share screen and get out of this?
So Jessica, what are you sharing a screen for? Oh, here.
Richard, I have it turned off for you.
Okay, thank you.
under the financials.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry, Jeremy. Go ahead and continue.
That's no problem. Yeah, so those walk mowers that we have are 20 years old, so being hard to find parts, but yeah, so that we've got that we'd like to do as well. So then when I was getting quotes for the fairway mower to go along with the walk mowers, I was told that most equipment is not going to arrive until the end of this the end of this year, sorry, or 2023, and costs are going to go up 15%. If we don't pretty much purchase the quote that they gave us. They're willing to hold on to the quote that we have. So then I looked into getting a sprayer because our sprayer has also kind of become very old. And so we were able to get a quote on a sprayer that it was going to be $54,000, but we have a type of sprayer that we can mount at just the tank that the water goes in to fill up the fertilizer mix and other plant health products that we apply on the golf course. And that came in at $20,000 just for the sprayer. And Bill, our mechanic, can put that on our vehicle that we're using for our sprayer, and then it'd be an easy fix. If we weren't to purchase these this year, everything is going to be going up about $15,000 total. If we were to say agree to do this in 2023, the cost of total is going to go up about $14.7 thousand. And we'd also be waiting longer, and so there'd be potentially more repairs to our older equipment that we're trying to replace. So if we were to do this where we bought the fairway unit and the sprayer and the walk mowers, we'd get an extra piece of equipment and we'd still be able to save $13,000 over the previous budgeted capital expenditures.
Okay, so how I think we should probably best do this in order to keep with Robert's rules is I want to have you read each of your motions. We'll start with the mower
Sure.
motion for 10K. Then I will ask for the committee to open it up for discussion, and we'll do one at a time. So go ahead and read your motion for the walk mower.
Okay, do you want the whole thing or just the proposal?
Just the
Like the back?
proposal, like I move
Okay.
to,
Right, okay. I moved a request for capital funding for the purchase of 4 used walk mowers from the CRRF fund.
okay, in the amount of
Oh,
10.
in the amount of $10,870 from
Okay.
Waverly Country Club.
Kim, this is just a technicality, but if Jeremy is not a committee member, he shouldn't be making a motion.
Okay, then
Just a
I will go ahead.
technicality.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and make the motion, and then I'll open and get a second and open it up for discussion. So the motion on the table is for the purchase of 4 Toro walk mowers in the amount of $10,800 from the 2022 CRRF fund. May I get a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Yep. The table is now open for discussion to ask questions of Jeremy.
I have a couple questions. Are the transportation costs, is that the 870 to get the mowers up here?
That's taxes.
The taxes. So are there costs associated with getting the mowers here from Oregon? Isn't that where they are?
Yeah, I mean, I would drive down with one of our company vehicles, so it'd come out of our operating budget as far as fuel expenses.
Technically, that's part of the capital is the truck
Oh,
and
okay,
so, and then any fuel costs would be part of putting those, that equipment into place. So I would say, I would amend the motion at this point to say not to exceed $12,000. And then I guess I have to say I'm a little nervous about acquiring used equipment. I see the reasoning behind it. And it's good that it's saving us money, and I'm willing to support the motion, but I just am going to say I've never had good experiences with that. I liked how you thought it out. So that's where I'm at with that.
Richard,
Yes, I'm wondering, the equipment is used, of course, and it has around 425 service hours on it, correct?
Yeah, give or take 500. They're all kind of in the same range.
What percentage of total useful life does that represent?
We could probably get about 2,000 hours if they're kept well.
Okay, so can you relate that to seasons or years or usage so we get some idea of what we're buying in terms of utility?
Well, it would be 75% of the useful life if
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
fourth of it and the total hours are 2,000. Oh.
but I'd like to add though, it was budgeted for $60,000 and he's asking for 10.8, and with Jessica's amendment, that would be 12. So that's a pretty substantial savings. If in fact, he's done his research well, and there's only a 25% usage on that equipment. That's something.
That's actually, that savings that's for the full, it's for a total. He broke it out, but it's like, Jeremy, I can't recall. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't have the document in front of me. It's about 13,000 total savings over the budgeted amount for all of the capital requests for golf. Is that correct?
It'd be a total. This particular one was budgeted for 60,000 initially. But like all these pieces of equipment, they're all going to be 10 to 15% at least higher than the quoted when everything was budgeted.
Yeah, the lack of warranty obviously is an issue, but then also just not being able to replace the parts. Can you get those on a secondary market? Do you think?
Yeah, parts are still available for these mowers. It's our older mowers that are becoming more difficult to get parts for.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and the one thing, the mechanic who had worked at the golf club I was at previously had been there for 40 years and was a very detailed, thorough mechanic. So they were very well taken care of in the lifespan that they were used. They stopped using them because they decided to switch to a different style of mowing because of labor issues. So they still have 4 of them that they're using, but they have 4 that they decided to set aside because they didn't need that much hand mowing, I guess, or walk mowing.
Jeremy?
Yep.
We're talking about a differential between new and used, about $48,000, correct?
Yeah, to the quoted, it's not in here, but we got a new quote for 4 brand new walk mowers from Toro, and it's $78,000.
Oh, okay. All right. So,
but this is the 60,000 is what we when the capital budget was made initially. That's what the quote was. But with everything going up, and then just everything's become exponentially, like we know in society, has become very expensive.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of latitude in terms of being able to afford whatever maintenance is required. That differential between new and used, as the maintenance will be a little higher on a used unit than a new unit likely. But it seems like there's just an awful lot of savings here to cover, that prospect. So I think it's good.
I agree.
Okay, so we're addressing, there's 2 hands up. I don't know if you can see them, Kim.
Oh, yeah.
We're addressing the
Richard,
amended.
Were you done, Richard? Because your hand is still up. You can lower it, and then Dan.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
We're discussing the amended motion that Jessica put forward.
Yeah, not to exceed 12,000. So any more questions?
Sorry, Dan, you may need to unmute.
I gotta put my headset in.
Okay,
Are
there we
there?
go. Sorry,
Oh,
I
Dan's
didn't
still
have
going.
I didn't unmute myself, so that's why you heard nothing. So I was just gonna say, this is an unusual opportunity. I mean, in this case, the mowers are coming from a facility that Jeremy has extensive experience with, having worked there, and he knows the folks that work there. He knows the equipment that's available. And so I would just say that, you know, this is something that'll make our workers more productive by we need to get something. And at the same time, it also freed up a lot of funds to be used for other things. It can also increase productivity, and that can be added now as opposed to waiting a year or two when currently we're in a pretty high inflationary environment. So I just wanted to, first of all, say I think this is a good example of being proactive on the part of Jeremy and his team. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say, I think, you know, from the perspective of the general manager, it seems like a good approach they've taken here.
I'd also like to second that, Jeremy, that I admire your proactivity and your resourcefulness in being able to find those at $2,500 each, albeit used. And so thank you for doing that. Do we have any more discussion on the Toro walk mowers? Okay. So the motion on the table then is to move to use the SURF fund in the amount not to exceed $12,000 for 4 Toro walk mowers.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Sonia.
Okay. Jacob, did you have a vote?
Can I abstain from this vote? Is that an option?
Yes, you can.
I will.
Okay.
Generally, when you abstain, you say why.
The reasoning is because of my lack of knowledge about the way that the budgets function. I feel like these initial meetings, I'll be here to listen and learn before making any kinds of decisions. I remember while talking about being recruited to the committee, the importance of making connections to the values of the community as reflected in the community survey. And so I was just taking a look at the responses, and I know that they're not indicative of the entire community, but I'm looking at the percentages on the golf scorecard in particular about how many people want the golf course to be self-supporting, capital included. And the lack of knowledge that I referred to before is not understanding where we are now relative to where we might want to be in the near and long-term future with regard to those responses in the survey. So I feel like voting would be having confidence in understanding all those dynamics at play, and I just don't feel like I have that right now. So that's why I'm choosing to abstain.
Thank you.
That's very reasonable. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Sonia, you have a hand up?
Yeah, and I agree. Thank you for being honest. And I think that that's a responsible attitude. So we appreciate it. I do just want to clarify, though, just to put your mind at ease, that Kim, myself, Joel, and the current board majority actually created this budget. And that budget number that Jeremy was referencing, what he'll reference further down into this document where we capped those capital requests. Golf has been trying really hard this year. We emphasized how important the survey results were. We feel like they've listened and have been very respectful to try. This is the first capital request from Golf, and you know, we do have some unexpected expenses from golf that is not their fault, but due to the flood. And so they're working to do additional fundraising with golfers and everything. So right now we're really happy with the way golf is working with us with the budget, and working really hard to stay in line with the budget that we put forth. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Sonia.
Okay, so that request passes. So your next request, Jeremy, was for the Fairway unit mower. Would you like to give us the background and history on that?
Sure. So our current, well, we are budgeted this year for a new Fairway mower costing $70,000. Our current Fairway unit is 10 years old, has about 42,000 hours on it. It's probably one of our more heavily used pieces of equipment. The last time it was down for about 10 days, and it cost just about $4,000 to repair. Just as like any other old machine, as time goes on, repairs become more costly, and, balancing whether to put money into them or not is always the hard part. So when I got a quote, the quote was even higher than that 70,000. If we can lock it in now, it'll be at 77,995 before taxes. So 84,702.57 would be the total. If we lock it in now, we save an increase of 15% and a potential sometime maybe in the second quarter of 2023, maybe, if we were to, we'll get it approved for the next budget cycle. So I guess that's the background on that.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to have the finance committee approve $84,702.57 from the capital repair and replacement fund for the purchase of a Fairway unit mower. And so do I have a second? And I'll open up the table for discussion.
A second.
Thank you. All right. Any questions for Jeremy? I know that I have one, but I'll let the committee go first. Go ahead, Jessica. And then Richard.
So I noticed that these have, I'm looking at the one. So this includes sales tax, also no delivery fee. So is the delivery included in the price, Jeremy? Do you know?
Yes, that's all included.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Richard.
Yeah, Jeremy, do you have any idea what the remaining effective life is on the current Fairway mower that we have?
I mean, it's hard to say, really. I mean, you could have maybe, you could make it last a long time, but it's all how much are you going to spend in it. But most golf courses are swapping out about 50,000 hours.
And this has 42,000?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a second question for you, Jeremy. What's the average, do you have any idea what the average maintenance cost is to service this Fairway mower per season? I mean, I know it's hard to say.
As far as like,
it's going to fail, I know.
Yeah, I mean, general maintenance is probably, $3,000, I would say, with oil changes, the reels, the belts, if hydraulic hoses blow, the time it takes for Bill to work on it.
But you say $3,000?
I mean, it's I've only been here for 6 months, but I would say, just because reels and bed knives are actually quite expensive, and because it's our only Fairway mower, we use it a lot. So it gets a lot more use than maybe if we had 2 Fairway mowers and each got, half the hours that this does get.
Well, Jeremy, does the efficiency of a repaired fairway mower reduce over time? Or if you can make a needed repair, will the efficiency of the mower remain as manufactured?
I guess I'm not fully understanding the question.
Well, if you make a complete repair on the mower, will it perform as it's designed to perform? It was originally designed to perform.
Not to its best ability, no.
I'm sorry.
Not to its best ability with hydraulics and reels and everything. It's just things break down. So, I mean, unless we replaced every motor and seal and, you know, if you replaced everything, yes. But if you just repair it to keep it going, it's not going to function as it would. No.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Jean?
Yeah, and Jeremy, so are you proposing that we lock the price in now, but don't purchase it until 2023? Is that correct?
No, it's the mower wouldn't arrive until they're saying November right now. So it would be, yes, it would be for 2022, but there is a potential that we wouldn't have to write the check until 2023. But
Okay.
if it does arrive in November, if it were to arrive in November of 2022, then it would have to be bought. So we can't I guess we can't predict it arriving in 2023. If
Okay.
that makes
It'd be the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Okay.
Yeah,
I got it.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
they're predicting arrival of stuff ordered now in November
Okay.
of 2022.
Okay. And then the other question is what are you doing with the current mower then? Is it going to be a backup? Are you going to sell it? What's going on with the current mower that we have?
Yeah, so we would use it as a backup.
Your number I had
And it
was the wrong number.
would
I
also-
tried to call it and,
Oh,
it would all
I got the
sorry.
right one now.
It would also help us out as far as when we have tournaments or we have a lot of growth.
Be more efficient
So-
with two people running them or something too? Or is that?
Yeah,
how-
exactly. Yeah.
And then I guess the new one hey, I have a question for Joel. How far out do you depreciate something like this? Joel?
Oh, I'd have to look to see the last one, but typically mower is probably about 5-6 years, 7 years,
Okay.
5 to 7 years.
Okay, so you get a little tax break for 7 years for depreciation, right?
Well, actually, we get no tax break because we are tax.
Nonprofit. Oh, okay, sure. Okay.
So
all right.
actually, we get the ultimate tax break.
You get the, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, for sure. Okay, good to know.
Ronnie,
All right,
I can-
thank you.
Jessica, did you have a
let me-
additional
Yeah,
question?
Yeah, I noticed that the quote here expires in July. So are they willing to give us a quote that goes through the end of the year to lock in this price, do you think?
Oh yeah. Well, they'll lock in the price. Even based, it's more I guess, are you saying if you guys were to approve this, that we'll still have the price for the fairway mower when it comes in November?
Right, because the
Yeah.
quote expires, according to this quote, it expires July 29th.
Yeah. So this is just it's just the quote. So then if we were to wait to say yes till July 29th, I guess would be the latest that, but right now they're not, that's kind of, I think, part of their system because they're actually kind of because I got this quote in January and then in February, they found out that everything was going to go up at 15%, but they're willing to lock us in if we can go. But the quote is, the price is good for, this was just a quote. I guess if that is, I don't know if I'm making any.
Well, what I would suggest
It's
to you,
to
because
lock it in.
quote in writing does expire. So what we don't want to have happen is they say, okay, now it's November and it's gone up 50%, 15%, is just to get them to re-quote it through and have it not expire through the end of the year or March of 2023, or maybe they'll want a deposit in order to lock in the price. But I mean, people leave, you know, any verbal commitment. I think, I don't know if this kind of money, if you'd want to rely on that or not.
I'm confused, Jessica, about your question, because if we're approving this now and we authorize the board finalizes the purchase, we would be making the purchase before July, right? That quote's expiring this coming July. I'm not understanding the matter.
Yeah, so he's saying that we may not take delivery and pay for it until November and possibly into 2023. So that's when the actual sale.
Okay.
And so if we have a quote now that has an expiration date, and I think that's true also for the sprayer. Yeah, they both expire at the end of July. I just think, you know, it's better just to get it in writing from them, or if they need a deposit to lock in the price, you know, but thing in writing I think would be helpful. But you don't want to have the salesman leaves and the general manager says, oh, I didn't know anything about that. And then, you know, you have nothing to back it up.
Right. Well, once we get approval, we'll let them know, and then we're locked in for the price. Because even if we have to pay in November or if it was in January, pretty much once we get approval, then we sign this quote that another piece of paperwork that'll get us locked in.
We'll get the price. Yeah.
This is just the quote guaranteeing the price through July for a board. If another club didn't meet their board, I don't know why they wouldn't meet for 6 months, but
okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no problem.
I have a question about, this might be more directed to Joel. If we are purchasing this unit was budgeted for 2023. So if we're doing this early to save money, how would we fund it since it's not budgeted until 2023?
Well, I mean, like when I was talking to Brian, so basically kind of the reason why he rolled all three of these things in together is because the cost savings, especially on the used equipment. So I believe all three together still come in about 13,000 under budget from the original two. And like the original two items that are on that budget document. So in a sense, yes, he's purchasing ahead, but however, what was actually set aside for golf is actually less.
Gotcha.
Overall.
Okay, so we're still within our budget. Thank you. That was my question.
Yeah, I think the fair, I'm not 100%, but I think that the fairway mower was budgeted for 2022, but the sprayer was for 2023.
Yeah, he's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So the sprayer is what that we're trying to move up, I guess you could, into 2022, because we're able to save those costs with the walk mowers, and then also finding out how much we can save with signing now and saving that 15% of future cost increases.
Gotcha. Any other questions or comments?
Well, Jeremy, this is Richard. Do you have any idea? We're looking at making this decision because we want to lock in a current price, $77,995, I guess it is. Historically speaking, do these units command a progressive escalation of cost year over year? In other words, we're looking at locking in this price because we're concerned about the price of this mower is going to be even greater in successive years. So I'm just trying to get an idea of, can we expect another 15% on top of that? Do you have any idea in your experience?
Yeah, no, I don't think that this isn't normal, the 15% increase year to year. I would say that I don't know the normal year to year increase, but I would not say this is normal. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think-
normal right now.
Right. I think when they can get the production and supply chain potentially figured out, it'll year to year, it won't fluctuate this much. But I think also too, golf has been booming through the pandemic actually, because more people are trying to get outside. So there's, I think, been more capital in golf. So there's been more mower purchases as well.
Mhm.
But I would not expect, this is not expected for sure.
Okay.
Even John Deere, Toro had predicted, they were already kind of in early January, were telling customers they were a year out on things arriving and an increase. And then John Deere they dropped the news to everybody in the end of January, early February, that they're also, most things are about a year out. And then if you didn't have a quote in, you're going to add 15% to that.
Well, I guess there's also a risk too, because if we stay with our current equipment that has so many hours of utility on it, that it might have a catastrophic failure before we can even have a unit to replace it with, correct?
Right. Yeah. That would be because even who knows how long, if it was an engine failure or hydraulic motor, what the timeline on getting that is. We do have some machines that we can kind of hybridize into a fairway mower, but it's not, they don't produce the same quality of cut as the particular machines that we're using.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the fairway unit mower?
Call the question.
Call to question. I move that the Finance Committee approve $84,702.57 from the Capital Repair and Replacement Fund for the purchase of a fairway unit mower.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sonia.
Okay. Are you also abstaining, Jacob?
Sorry, I tried the space bar trick to unmute
I
myself and
know.
it did not work.
Okay.
Yeah, abstaining for the same reason. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So we got 6 for yes, and Jacob abstains. Thank you. Same reasoning. Okay, so that is approved. And our next item, Jeremy, if you'd like to tell us about the John Deere sprayer request.
Sure. Yeah. So currently our sprayer is not our oldest piece of equipment, but probably our oldest, heaviest used piece of equipment. I believe it was actually the first piece of equipment that my predecessor, Jacob, purchased when he got here in 2011. Yeah, it's one of our highest used pieces of equipment. But after kind of hearing about what was happening with equipment and the increases and the delays, and knowing that ours had some fairly serious issues that we're going to need a few $1,000 repairs to, I decided to look into replacing that machine. We had budgeted for $54,000 to replace that in 2023. But I was able to, because of the type of sprayer we have, you can remove the tank that you fill up with fertilizer and water, and that can save us some costs. So just the sprayer unit itself, not the vehicle that carries it, costs only $19,950. And as the other pieces of equipment, if we were not to purchase it, it would be a year probably delay, and also another 15% increase in cost. This actually could get here in, sounds like, the second quarter of 2022, if this were to be approved. So And overall, with the repair and the 15%, we'd save about $5,000 if we were to approve it for this year.
So the motion on the table is a proposal for the finance committee to approve. Is it $21,231.30 with tax, Jeremy?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
for the purchase of the John Deere sprayer from the capital repair and replacement fund. May I get a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any open for discussion, any questions or comments? Pretty clear. Go ahead, Jean. Oh, you're on mute. The phrase for 2020.
There you go.
Unmute.
Yeah. Just a question on how good is the rest of the machine? You're replacing the tank, but is the rest of the machine pretty reliable for a while, or kind of what condition is the rest of the machine?
Yeah, it's in really good shape. Bill, our mechanic, had gone through it recently and replaced some things. We also have 3 other ProGators, a couple that are actually newer that we could, if that ProGator had some issues, we could put the tank on the newer John Deere. But that John Deere ProGator is in good working condition.
Okay.
And a new ProGator is, it's about $30,000.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
I think it was very ingenious to make the decision to just replace the sprayer and not the ProGator that it's attached to. So whose idea was that?
That was kind of my idea, just to save on costs. I mean, these other sprayers are, you look at the Toro and it's $100,000, and the Jacobson's another $95,000. I guess the Toro's $80,000, but these sprayers are quite expensive when they're all in one. And kind of we had lucked out that we had one like this, because if we had one of those older, what would be a Toro 5800, or there are other models that they had previously, that'd be you'd have to replace the whole vehicle. You can't really replace the tank the way you can with this particular model. So kind of lucked out. And then also just talking to Bill, and Bill had done quite a bit of work to just recently on the sprayer vehicle. And so he felt we could get a decent amount of life out of it, and then save us some money and keep the sprayer without having to keep putting money into the sprayer. Because it definitely is something that's one of our most used pieces of equipment.
And then back to my other question for the Fairway mower. Joel, with the purchase of this a year ahead of time get absorbed with the cost savings for the other 2 purchases? If
Yeah.
we have to pay for this
Oh, correct. Yeah.
ahead of schedule?
Like basically the important thing is the amount of capital purchases set aside for golf for 2022 is even by moving that sprayer into 2022 instead of 2023, it's still approximately 13,000 less than just those original first 2 items that were scheduled in 2022 alone. And of course, the big part of that is the used equipment that Jeremy tracked down for us.
Okay. Any other conversation on the motion on the table? Okay, seeing that there are none, I call to question. The motion on the table is for the I move for the amount of $19,950 plus tax for a total of $21,231.30 from the Capital Repair and Replacement Fund for the purchase of the John Deere Sprayer HD 300.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, Sonia.
6 in favor, 1 abstention. Okay, thank you. Same reason?
Same reason.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you, Jeremy. So now this will move to the Board of Directors meeting next week.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You as well. Okay, so those 3 items. Up next for our business is the UDR request for folks watching at home. UDR stands for Undesignated Reserve Account. And I believe Joel was going to talk to us about that request for the hazard trees.
Yes, I am. I guess I don't really need to share the screen on this. It's just one memo. It's really only just a few numbers to talk about. So basically this is for, George was originally going to do this, but he couldn't make it tonight to this meeting, so I'm doing it for him. But so this is for the hazardous tree fund, which is in the ACC security budget. And it's GL 6165, in case you're wondering. And so basically GL 6165 is budgeted for $60,000 for the total annual budget for 2022. And as of, well, basically as of this week, so the number that has been expended so far from this GL line item is $44,237. And that includes every single invoice that has gone through accounting as of this week, processed through accounts payable. So that leaves about $15,763 left in this line item. Just for comparison, last year at the end of March 2021, this GL line item had about approximately 20,000 in it. So we're already running about $24,000 higher in terms of expenditure wise for hazardous tree removal for 2022. And now I know this budget does say, or I mean, the capital request memo for, it's actually UDR request memo for this does say 40,000, but it looks like we would also like to amend this to say 60,000 to, now at the end of 2021, looking back at how much we had in expenditures, it was approximately $100,000 in hazardous tree removal. So we were thinking to go ahead and budget for another 60,000 to pull out a UDR to supplement the 60,000 already in the operating budget to give a cushion of about a total of expenditures of about $120,000 to possibly expend on hazardous trees. And that's pretty much, I guess, the whole situation in a nutshell.
So let me go ahead and put the motion forward, and then I'll have your question, Callie. So the motion on the table is to request an amended amount of $60,000 for the removal of hazardous trees from the UDR fund. And I will need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Questions and comments from the floor? Callie.
I had excuse me, a couple of questions actually. One is just, well, more of a comment. It's a significant amount of the UDR balance. It's what, 1/6 of it. So it's just it's a heavy hit. So I just wanted to point that out. But also I'm just wondering, we had a reason for budgeting what we budgeted. So I'm wondering, you know, what are some reasons behind the significant increase? Do we expect it to continue? Is it something we need to adjust our processes around these estimates? What kinds of reasoning do we have behind that?
Can I answer that, Joel? Do you mind? And then you can
Yeah.
chime in. So we've had a significant amount because of the snow and flood events. We've had some very significant trees that had to come down very, very quickly, or they were going to hit homes. It was endangering not only property, but it was endangering lives. And so these were not small trees. We had to bring in climbers, specialists, and we have had, I don't know, I think most of you are aware of Southern Court. Those trees along Southern Court, as we began to, that road had a catastrophic failure, and it did a strange little twist underground. And as it began to do that, those trees fell over several weeks period of time. And again, they were twisting and falling and twisting and falling. And, it was dangerous. Our crews couldn't go in there. We had to bring specialists in. So we've had much higher incident of immediate response required on these hazardous tree removals this year. There was a slide at Tumbling Water where those trees were coming down and hitting the bridge. We could have lost that bridge if we didn't quickly act. And so that's why we used more of the budget. But last year when we budgeted less so that we as a board and as a finance committee now could have more control over this, because last year we spent almost all of that money within the first 6 months, and we didn't have much to show for it. So this year we budgeted a lesser amount to ensure that there was more responsibility and more oversight by the board and by the finance committee on how these are expended. This calculation for the rest of the year is what we're calculating based on the way it looks. Because I was talking with George, and like Joel said, he just couldn't make it tonight. But that's a little bit. It was at 40,000. The 20,000 should not only take these hazard trees, but it'll allow us, because we do have several trees that we've been watching. They've been on the watch list. Some of them for 2 years or more. And so as we keep becoming more saturated and everything, we're having, more movement. So we just want to be prepared. But that should, we've gotten through most of them, but we want to be prepared for what's to come for the rest of the year. So that's where that number's coming from.
Help, Callie?
It does. I guess I'm just, so you think it's going to be that extra 60,000 to get through the rest of the year is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what they've come up with. George does have
Okay.
a list, and when he can send that out. He has a tree list, and we can follow up with that. So you can kind of watch as these come along, if you like. But I can basically, the expectation is that there's several clusters of major trees that are still needing to come down. And then we need this kind of cushion to be prepared for if we have other events, but we have a request to sit in there for about another 20,000 right now in trees that need to come down this next week. So as soon as the board okays it, those trees will need to come down. And then after that, we'll be able to start hopefully slowing down, because this is taking down all of these real emergent trees. We'll just, he has a plan for trying to pace it out the rest of the year.
Okay, and I don't know that I need to know the detail on every tree. I was just wondering kind of what the reasoning was. So I appreciate that.
Joel, were you going to add to that before we move to Jessica's question? Did you have anything to add?
Oh, I guess maybe the only other thing I was going to add is, like Callie asked about the budgeting process. Now, of course, as we move throughout the year, this also will start to kind of play a role in the next year's budget. If we see this tree line item going up the way that it is, so we might budget even more next year in response to that. So budgets are always kind of a moving work in progress from year to year, and it's always building on past data. So it'll certainly become a data point for 2023's budget.
As the weather phenomenon keeps getting more severe. So thank you. Jessica. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So I was curious who George is. Is he an employee? So we,
Yes, George is our environmental planner.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then I'm also, so this was one of my questions for finance, or when we get to the financial statements, but there's a cost center called UDR, and then, which apparently we're paying for the hazardous trees out of that, but the hazardous tree expenses are actually under ACC security. So how does that get captured back? I mean, do we like book, transfer the revenue? And so there's a UDR account for ACC to match that revenue? Or, I mean, I'm just wondering how we match the revenue and expenses, because the revenue's under UDR, but the expenses under ACC.
I can, when I go to the financial statements, I'll point that out when we get to it. It'll
Okay.
probably be easier when I have it up on the screen.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments or discussion on the hazardous tree requests on the table? Nobody wants a tree falling on their house, right? Okay, so I'm gonna repeat the motion for voting.
Jacob
go
has
ahead,
question.
Sonia. Oh, go ahead, Jacob. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll just ask really quickly because I don't know. Is there any risk at all for, I don't know how the tree removal works. Like, is it the entire root system of the tree? Is there any risk for mudslide, especially on the steeper portions where trees might be being taken down? Just thinking about the potential long-term cost there.
You mean after they've been taken down, could they still slide? Well,
Right.
so Georgia's trained to do tree evaluation, and then once he identifies that these are hazardous trees, so these are dead or trees that are dying that are about to either fall on property or roads, or they have potential to harm individuals or their homes. So these are imminent threat type of situations. But when they cut them, they follow best practices, and they will almost always leave the stump in place to help to hold that in place. And so they work. There's been a couple of instances like on Tumbling Water. If you drive by there, you'll see like there's a big rock outcropping that's exposed now because it just kept sliding. We kept cutting the trees. Kim can remember this because they kept calling and they're like, more trees are falling. Like as we were cutting them, it was insane. And so it ended up that Strimler Gravel came out and had to just knock them all off. And that's why you see that rock face. So they cut trees and tried to, keep them rooted. But they were we used geotest engineering in those situations. And they monitor most of these slide locations on a continuous basis around Sudden Valley. So they watch that Tumbling Water area, also Southern Court. So whenever we have suspected slide, they have sensors out there and they're watching, and then they tell us basically what we need to do. And that's what happened. They said, take the trees down. They're gonna take out the bridge. We started to take them down, but they started sliding, and they were like, we just need to scrape it. And that's what happened. And they continued to watch it, which is why that parking lot's still a little closed off over there. But we do use the engineers to keep a close eye on those things.
Jessica, you have a question? Oh, Jacob, did that answer your question? And then it looks like Jessica's unmuted.
Yeah, sorry. I thought Jessica was jumping in. Thank you, Sonia. That does help. I appreciate that.
Great questions tonight, everyone.
Motion is for 60, not 40, correct?
Joel amended to 60. So will we just say not to exceed 60? Would that be a good way to word it for the motion? Mhm.
Yeah, actually, I mean, if you just say 60, then that'll just, like, it can't go over 60
Okay.
at that point.
Any more questions or comments on the hazardous tree removal request? Okay, so the motion on the table is for the Finance Committee to approve $60,000 from the UDR fund for the removal of hazardous trees this year.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Sonia.
Okay. Any opposed? I think that's everybody. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Joel, for presenting that on behalf of George. Our community members who live among those trees will be very appreciative. And so at this point, I will hand the meeting over to Joel to share the screen and discuss the January financials.
So I take it everyone can see the balance sheet right here.
Can you
Yes.
please zoom
Bump-
that?
Bump it up.
Is that enough?
Great.
That's great.
Okay, so now, obviously, I'm going to be covering the January 2022 financials. I guess one piece of trivia is the January financials always, these take the longest of any financial statements to put together because it's taking all the spreadsheets and all the formulas and retooling them for the 2022 revenue codes and everything. And it takes quite a while to actually, once it's all retooled, then it really picks up nicely from month to month. But I'll just go ahead and start.
Clarifying question. These aren't then coming directly out of your software. These are spreadsheets that you're creating?
The information, yes, comes out of the software, then it's dumped into the spreadsheets. And then, so then formulas, are splitting this stuff out or, pivot tables and stuff like that, grouping certain things together. But then let me just scroll real quickly. Once you get into statements that look like this is a system generated statement.
Okay, so can you just go back to the balance sheet? Question. That was all. I always have concern about off-system stuff because the more you transfer things into spreadsheets, the more room there is for error.
Right. Of course, I check all this. I check reconciling numbers to make sure that things balance. So,
Yeah.
for example, if
Right, and it's a lot of extra work. So.
putting statements together
Of your
takes
time.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of time. Is there a reason why the balance sheet in the system isn't sufficient?
well, it really is a matter of groupings, how I'm grouping stuff together. So
Yeah.
I can group
So-
stuff together more efficiently, in spreadsheets than with system type stuff.
Yeah, so the grouping and the balance sheet in the balance sheet is really strange. So I was kind of curious why it was set up the way it was set up.
Well, I set it up because I'm the accounting manager, Jessica. So
Okay.
this is how I'm going to set it up. So
So traditionally you have all your assets and then you have all your liabilities and then you have equity and you can see very easily that the balance sheet balances. And because this is set up differently from the standard from GAAP, I ended up putting a summary together just to make
Yeah,
sure I was
Jessica, these
understanding.
statements are not purported to be perfectly GAAP setup statements. So these are, that's
I'm
why
not-
it's down here.
I'm not,
internal financial statements.
I prefer to have a GAAP.
I'm not going to do GAAP statements, okay? This is how it's set up and this is how it'll be. So unless you come in here and you want to be the financial director, this is how it's going to be set up, period.
Wow. Okay.
Joel, that's very inappropriate. Very inappropriate. Kim, I think that needs
Yeah.
to be mentioned.
Well, the discussion did take place. There wasn't any name calling. I don't mind a debate, but it needs to be respectful. But I don't mind a disagreement in opinions. So Jessica,
I
you
will
made
say-
you made your point, and Joel made his point.
I mean,
That was fairly disrespectful.
look at Callie, my point is, these statements are how they've been set up. They've been set up like this for years. They're very comparable. And I'm not just gonna totally change the format of it because Jessica wants to change. That's it.
I understood your point, Joel. I'm objecting to your tone. That's all I'm saying. Period.
Look, I apologize if I came across as combative, but
Yeah, you were combative, but that's all right. I will go ahead and continue to do my summaries in a traditional format to make sure I understand how these are
sure,
going.
that's fine. Yes.
Yeah. So a question about member receivables. How come that is a zero amount?
Because member receivables, we basically, anything that becomes 30 days late, we just kind of for conservative keeping, we just write it off technically. That's what we do. So it's like, if anyone has any balance that is, as soon as it becomes 30 days late, we write it off to bad debt expense. And then when it's paid, then it becomes a recovery in the prior year. I mean, in the current
Right.
year.
Right. So if I'm looking at the lot analysis, am I looking at this right? It says actual 1 month due. And that's like 153 lots.
Well,
That would be the point at which we would write them off. Is that right?
Can you tell me where you're looking at?
Yeah, it's the lot and dues analysis.
Oh,
Shows all the different, so it's anything from that 1 month through the +4 or 4+, correct?
yeah, basically anything that's 1 month due, basically all that stuff has been written out.
Okay,
So, yes, you're exactly correct in terms of all this stuff right here has
Okay.
been written off.
got it, okay. And then-
Jessica, do you mind if Joel can do his presentation and then you can ask questions? So
Oh,
that
sure.
he can go ahead and go with his flow. He generally starts out with the balance sheet and he works his way down.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
All right, thank you.
So now the big changes to the balance sheet here would be, you probably remember in past months, basically between this, well, there's the PPP loan liability that was on here. It was kind of situated literally right where this blue rectangle is right here. So now since that PPP loan liability is gone, since it was gone back in 2021, it's removed. It's off the balance sheet now. Now, big notable changes would be, okay, so the capital reserve holding cash funds. So this is the biggest change that I'm making on this balance sheet. So now there's this column, obviously this column right here, this December 31, 2021 column. And then the column next to it is the 2020, now this is January 31, 2022. But so at the end of December 31, 2022, this is the capital reserve holding cash fund right here, 1.157 million. And you'll see that this is now zero. So basically, and then basically, so it's easy to see, what I did is I created a new line item that says SURF, because you remember from the resolution in October. So we're transferring this capital reserve holding cash fund out of that account, out of that kind of holding category and putting it into SURF. So now I'm putting it down here into SURF capital reserve holding cash fund. So this is basically so you can see this is where it went to in a sense. So this is where it's sitting. So meaning like instead of just having it sitting up here and being commingled with this, I'm leaving this amount broken out here. And I'll get into like, now you'll notice there's a little difference between this and this, obviously this number is higher than that number. So, and then when I get to the cash sheet, then you'll see why. But in terms of, that's the biggest change in terms of the financial statement. So now just to get back, just to re-clarify why this looks a little different is because like Jessica was talking about, we have that, that disagreement over which she totally started with. I'm just kidding, by the way. That was a joke, just. But the reason why this is split up like this is because this top part is the operations part of the balance sheet. And then this part down here, which can be seen right here in these titles, operations, capital. So the net operations plus all this capital stuff, you come up to the net assets of 18,939,376. There's the total equity, 18,939,376. Now the next page, which is the income statement. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to point out the collection rate, which is good. I mean, it's quite positive from the last couple of years in terms of the January collection rate. So the collection rate in January is always typically the lowest. Well, it is the lowest of any other month of the year. And then it steadily climbs up from there. In terms of then when we finish out in December, December's is usually at its highest point of the year in terms of year-to-date collection rate. So the collection rate for January is 90.8%. Now the collection rate for January 2021 was 86.7%. Then for January 2020 was 86.5%. So we're already tracking higher in January 2022 than we did the prior 2 years. And then the prior 2 years, like at the end of, so just in relation, at the end of December, now when I said in January 2020, when we started out at the end of at 86.5%, at the end of that year, we finished out at 95.5%. So at the end of January 2021, we were then 86.7%. Then we finished out last year at 96.8%. So at the end of January 2022, we're already tracking higher than we did those last 2 years. So that's definitely a positive note. And like I pointed out before last month, but I'll point it out again in terms of our collection rate for the year is budgeted 93%. So we budgeted a more conservative collection rate in terms of, because we didn't exactly know what was going to happen this year in terms of the state of everything. And for every 1% higher of the collection rate than we budgeted for operations alone, that's about $22,000. So if we budgeted, so we came in at 95%, that'd be another $44,000 for the year at the end of 2022. Now, the good thing about the January statements is I just leave the format the same, current month, year-to-date month. So we don't have to talk about two different time frames. It's the same time frame, so to speak. So just skipping ahead, at the end of January 2022, we had net income of approximately 106,000. We were tracking about, we'll just round it, about $20,000 below budget, that's really not that big of a deal. It's not as meaningful anyways at the end of January in terms of once we start to progress throughout the year. But in comparison wise, at the end of January 2021, we were at approximately $55,000 in terms of net income. We were about $45,000 higher than budgeted. However, this over budget, under budget, especially at the very first month of the year, is really kind of a function of how we split the budget out throughout the year. If we fine tune it a little better, then January could look a little worse, or it could look a little better from one year to the next at the end of January. It's really as you progress throughout the year where that over budget, under budget is coming in. Now, Jessica, when we were talking about the UDR stuff, she asked in terms of now the hazardous tree fund, that 60,000, where's that going to show up on the income statement? Now hazardous trees will show up right here in this category, this regulatory compliance category. Once we start spending it out of UDR, then I'm going to drop another line item in here that'll say hazardous tree, and then you'll see expenses showing up in here. So then it's adding to the UDR total expenditure amount. These are approved items that the board has approved. So That's really the only thing that can get into this category, would just be approved items. Or regular items like legal fees, stuff like that, anything involved, but that sort of stuff is going to show up down here, kind of commingled together. Anything that collection efforts, things like that, that become a part of legal expenses. I'll just leave it like this. Okay, so on the cash sheet right here. Oh, and by the way, let me just go back. Because I was talking about the January collection rate. So the January collection rate, 90.8%. Now I've already calculated the February collection rate since you know, obviously AR is all closed up for February. And we came in at, well, it was pretty close to 93% actually for February. I'm going to tell you here real quick. I'll just pull it up again. Yeah, so we came in at 92.9% at the end of February 2022, which is really good. In terms of comparison, at the end of February 2020, we came in at 90.6% year to date. And at the end of February 2021, we were at 86.8%. So we're now, last year, it took us until about March of 2020 to get up to 93%. And then in 2021, it took us literally until June to get up into that range. So we're actually tracking pretty well in terms of collection rate at the end of February so far as well. So that's a really good positive note. So so the capital reserve, this is a really handy sheet that shows you all these numbers will tie right back to the balance sheet. So like, for example, I'll pick one. Here's SURF 2,688,455. If I were to go back to the balance sheet real quick, then here it is right here, 2,688,455. And then at the end of January 2022, it's 2.9 million. And then here it is right here, 2.9 million at the end of January 2022. And then basically what you're looking at, dues coming in, this is cash coming in, investment income, interest income, mitigation release that came out of Simon of Savings that is now into SURF, released by the county. And then expenditures. So these are expenditures for basically board approved type projects, interest expense, things like that. Now, the big items in terms, and then once you get down into this category, the big item right here is this obligated expenses line item. And this is where, like, for example, for SURF, these are all the approved capital projects that we're on the hook for, 560,845. So that's everything that the board has approved and that expenditures that we've still planned on spending. So like if the board approved, you know, like all that SURF type stuff, if the board approves it, I'll just make it simple. Let's say it was a round number of 100,000, then this would, next month, if I did this and we had no invoices coming in yet, then this would be 660,845. And this is then your board recommended carryover balance, net usable cash. This is how much we're looking at. This is what we could be realistically looking at in terms of at the end of 12/31/2022, or how much we kind of have to work with, possibly, you know, about right now, 2.7 million, what we could safely figure on being able to spend or use throughout the year. This is the biggest change, this capital reserve fund sheet, in terms of here's that capital reserve holding fund that you saw in the prior years, and especially back in December, 1.157 million here. You'll see here's where I'm board approved transfer. I'm transferring this out of here and transferring it right back into the column next to it, the SURF capital reserve holding cash fund. So, and then basically what you see here would be, oh, like a little interest income that's getting in here. Here's like this $1,993 is basically this is transfer fee revenue that happened in December from like a home sale, you know, that finally got to us in early January. So then it was just dumped into this account before it was all transferred away. And then when you get down here, basically what I'm doing is I'm plugging this as a negative balance to show there is no usable cash here. We'll just be conservative. We're just factoring on not having any usable cash at this point. Because we don't know, like in terms of in the future, how much when a refund program starts, how much of it will be refunded back or whatever. So just be conservative. It's just sitting in here is an amount that is not usable for now. Now over here is the UDR account. So this is that tree fund that you just approved for UDR. This will go up another 60,000, which will then drag this down to 226,937 in terms of usable cash. Now, the good thing for this, we'll skip over current month because it's the same as the year to date. And basically what you're looking at is let me just do this. Okay. So now I pointed this out last month, but I'll just mention it again. What you're looking at here is the income statement, but it's now you're looking at a departmental level is what you're looking at. So, so that 105,869, if I scroll back to the income statement, there it is again, 105,869. And this is showing you how it's breaking down on a departmental level. So golf is the one item that we must, I mean, I always talk about golf, but so I'll talk about it anyways tonight. But we just got through, you know, spending a lot of time with golf capital improvement requests and stuff. Obviously, capital requests don't come out of this line item, it comes out of capital. But in terms of comparison figures, so like for golf, what you're looking at is their actual revenue right here for January, 173,495. Last year they had 185,149. Now January always looks higher than the other months typically because all of the prepaid revenue that Brian takes in for the year usually gets, well, it just gets dumped into January. Now technically what we could do is we could take that, you know, we could start spreading it out throughout the year, like 1/12 of it gets recorded as a revenue. I thought about doing that in years past. I decided not to do that since this is how they've kind of done it. Once we get to the audited financial statements, it doesn't make any difference anyways, because the auditors just look at it year to date at that point. So it's just kept like this for comparison reasons. But, and it makes it easy to see, especially in January when he had 185,149 last year, then he has 173,495 this year, then you can really see year to year or year over year, I should say. So it's a decrease of about 11,654. His total expenses, actual salary, benefits right here, plus his other expenses here. Those two added up, given him the total expenditures of 51,963. Now, last year he had total expenditures of about 46,344. So expenditures are about 5,600 higher. So the bottom line is his net income, the end of January is 121,532. He had about 138,805. So that's a decrease of about 17,273. And that's really kind of the story in terms of like with golf. Now, in terms of like for maintenance, like for example, you know, over a budget by about 53,225, as you see right there. This is basically, this is really largely related to the whole weather event that happened, as you remember, back in January. That's hitting the GL in January. ACC security right here over budget 14,144. This is really related to actually what we just got through talking about with the UDR request, hazardous tree removal expenses. That's causing this to run negative. But I would say that's pretty much encompasses the financial statements for January. Those are the big high notes.
Thank you, Joel. So we can open up the floor for questions from the committee.
I have some questions, of course. I was wondering why payroll is so under budget. I know there's 2 management positions open.
I can
And
tell you.
it's not just one department, it's several departments.
Right. Yeah. I'll tell you the answer to that. That's because, so when budgeting stuff for payroll, there are a couple of months, April and I believe September, that have 3 payrolls for the year. So then we weight those months heavier. However, at the end of the year, in January, of course, when I'm looking back to close out 2021, then that's when I really take a close look at, the hours that were worked on that first payroll in January, if it relates, and most of it related back to December. So then I kick it back into December for a payroll accrual. And that's for audited financial statement purposes. So that's what's caused January to look light. Of course, now the offset of that will be December can look heavier. So for the course of the year, it'll balance out. But that's the reason why.
So to clarify, so you don't budget monthly, you budget just divide by 12, is that right?
It depends on the department. So like, for example, golf, you'll see is a lot closer. It's a lot tighter on the payroll expenditure. And what I mean by that is Brian, he's really careful when it comes in terms of he wants his budgets to be a lot more spot on from month to month. So for golf, that's why golfs will look like it's closer to budget, but overall in terms of for the other departments, we'll do it according to what basically the managers say from month to month on the payroll spreadsheets. But then basically it's the payroll that can throw off one month will be that first payroll, especially the year, January, where I'll look at it, and this is for audited statement purposes. I'll look at it and see how much of this really pertained to 2021. And then I create a payroll accrual back in 2021 for the audit statement. So that's but then like I said, also what can happen too is then December's can become heavier for that exact same reason. So it evens out throughout the year.
Okay. Under maintenance, I got the weather thing, but there's something called other R&M and it's over budget by 22K. What is that?
I didn't hear that last part. What did you say?
So under maintenance, that 63,000 over budget.
Yeah.
Some of that is weather related.
Right. Yeah. About 20. I know the line item you're talking to. It's approximately 20,000, I believe.
22.
I think you said the same thing. And so that, yes, that was related also to the weather event. And that was actually an invoice from P&W Services. And then, so it's so at that point, P&W Services usually gets coded to capital. So roads, engineering services. But in this case, when he's working on an operations type standpoint, then at that point, the catch-all for that will be other R&M and maintenance.
So what was the service though?
Oh, it was like a whole bunch of stuff. Some of it was like roads type related stuff in terms of things that maintenance would have done, flood type related response. It's a whole bunch of stuff on the invoice.
Okay.
Coded to.
Was that attributed to the rain events last November, December?
Yeah, some of that was. Meaning just flipping through his invoice. I actually have the invoice right here. Because I knew Jessica would ask about this. So.
Jessica is on it. We need her keen eyes.
Yeah, for example, looking at it. Yeah, actually, when I went through the GL and looked at this, I pulled this invoice just in case this question did come up. But something review tree cleanup. Looking at the golf course, during the flood event and stuff. It's a whole mixture of stuff, quite a few hours, all coded to operations.
Okay.
Tyler is really good at splitting out, because I give Tyler all the approved capital project codes, meaning like he knows what, he's so involved in capital type related work out here. He knows all the codes, and he will actually code his invoices specifically to those codes. And so like, for example, all of this is coded to operations.
And so why does UDR have negative income? That was my other question.
Oh, I'll tell you what's triggering that. Let's just go to the UDR sheet. So UDR, the thing that is obviously the biggest income for UDR will be recoveries. The recoveries of bad debt expense. However, for UDR, the big thing for this, let me find it here. So the big thing for this is going to be, now remember, this is actually a perfect question from your very first question when you asked why, remember when you asked why was the AR income or the AR balance at 0? And then I said, anything that becomes 30 days old, we just write it off. We code it right to bad debt expense. With one exception, when we get to the very end of the year, and this is strictly for audit related purposes, I basically unwrite, less than 90 days of bad debt expense and put it back onto the balance sheet. And then, so I'll do that, and then it becomes a reversing entry where it reverses out in January. Then I end up doing the same thing will happen at the end of this year as well. But that.
What's the offset for that then? Wouldn't that be AR?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the opposite of that is AR.
But there was no AR for members in January.
In December, there was.
Well, so when you debit revenue, what do you credit then? You credit AR?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's just reversing off.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, you're precisely right. So so in December, I'll credit bad debt expense, I'll debit the AR, and then that entry will automatically reverse itself away. And the opposite will happen in January. So then that's why it just naturally removes it from the balance sheet.
And is that the same thing that you do then between ACC and UDR? Because the expense is in ACC, but the revenue is in UDR?
No, what expense are you talking about, in ACC?
Yeah, so in ACC.
Oh, you're talking about the hazardous tree, right?
Yeah, that's where the expense goes for
Oh, yeah.
hazardous trees, but the revenue is in UDR. Right? Am I right about that?
Well, no, actually, so you're talking about the 60,000 that was approved?
No, I'm talking about, so if you go to ACC, they had, because it made sense to me because you were talking about what we had spent so far. Find the right page. So in the ACC budget, account 6165, there was $20,091 spent in hazardous tree removal.
Right.
And so the expense is in ACC, but the revenue that covers that expense is in UDR. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
Let me find this. Okay, so you're talking about this, right?
Correct, yeah.
So now say that again.
So the revenue that covers this hazardous tree is coming from UDR, is that correct?
Well, no, the revenue that will cover this actually comes from dues in a sense. So like this is just an expenditure line item. Now I think what you're getting to is like what will cover that 60,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what will cover that 60,000 is literally just like if I go back to the balance sheet, basically when we pay for those, let's just say we paid 60,000 for hazardous trees, I'm going to drop, it's going to come from this UDR reserve cash. That'll be the credit. And then the debit will go to a new code that I'll create that will actually show up. We'll just go to it. See how it says clubhouse remediation? There'll be a new expense code that'll say UDR hazardous tree. removal, 60,000.
Okay,
So the
okay, so yeah,
60,000 was,
the expense will be in one cost center and the revenue will be in another, essentially.
well, actually, it's just going to be a decrease of cash because this is revenue from prior years due collections.
Right, no, I get what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Callie, oh, go ahead, Jessica, and then Callie has her hand up.
No, I think I'm done for now for me.
Thank you, Callie.
Wasn't going to let me unmute.
We
Um,
can hear you.
I'm trying to take a hint here. So back to one of the questions had to do with the UDR negative income. So thank you, Jessica. I just had a couple of questions. I probably missed them in the past, but back on, oh, where are my notes? If you can scroll back, Joel, to the balance sheet, I think. There's just a couple of things that I'm not clear on what exactly they are under the capital assets. And the current, so the CRRF capital reserve holding.
Right.
And the mitigation assignment and the LWWSD assignment. Can you explain those to me again? I got a little lost on that.
I guess I'll knock out these two first. So the mitigation
okay.
assignment of savings cash and the local Wacom water sewer district assignment of savings cash. These are basically assignment savings funds that we have to set up for like mitigation for projects that we do. And then the county will hold on to it until they're basically satisfied that the time period is elapsed, and then they'll issue us a letter of release. And then at that point, so this is our cash, meaning it's in our accounts. There's just basically an assignment of savings that locks it in place. So we can't take it out until the county, like issues us a letter and says, okay, this assignment of savings situation has been satisfied. And then it allows us it basically unlocks it. And actually
So what would it be used for? I mean, what's the purpose of it?
Oh, it's literally just kind of like I guess you could think about it like a bond in a sense. Like if you want to think about it like that, kind of like a bond type situation to where, like we'll set up an assignment of savings. Let's just say we went out and we're going to do some work on a piece of land, and there could be some environmental mitigation type thing. And the county could say, well, you have to put up a $10,000 account for a certain amount of time in case something goes wrong and you have to fix something, or they have to fix something or whatever. And then once the time period elapses and they're satisfied, and they'll issue a letter that will allow us, it'll just release the money, and then we can do whatever we want to with it. Here's like a situation right here where you see this mitigation release, this 128,641, where here it was released. Now it's put right back into SURF, which is where it came from in the first place.
Okay. So it's almost like a contract of sorts, though.
Kind of, yeah, kind of like that, kind of like a deposit. You could think about it like that, like putting up a deposit. So it's like, it's our cash, meaning like we're earning the interest while it's kind of set aside, so to speak, contractually legally set aside. So, but then when we get the letter of release, then I can move it into whatever account or whatever, put it back to where it came from.
Okay.
Now, this new thing, the SURF capital reserve holding cash. So now you probably recall the capital reserve transfer fee, basically. Now you probably, yeah. So basically what you see here is this was that 1/4 of 1% when a buyer that the buyer had to pay on their house. And then it gets accumulated into this cash fund here. And then, so this goes back to October when, I believe it was October when the board had the resolution to terminate the transfer fee. And then part of that was, if you went back with the resolution, then sometime in January to then move this cash. So basically what we were waiting for is, since the fee stopped at the end of December, then in January to go ahead and move this cash from here out of there into the SURF account. So what I could have done is just directly taken this 1,157,000 and just plugged it back in here at this top line item SURF. But instead I created a new line item just so we could track it separately and see it. So I called it SURF Capital Reserve Holding Cash Fund.
Okay.
So it's,
And
right.
as that's paid back, it'll show out as an expense.
well, not really an expense. It'll just show out as we're drawing down the account, basically is what we're doing.
Okay.
So it's like if we paid out, you would just see this amount getting smaller and smaller, basically.
Okay. And then my other question had to do with on the capital sheet. Right there. So you mentioned a couple times on the, for instance, on the 2022 expenditures, you mentioned board approved expenses. So those are the, are those expenses that are over and above budgeted expenses, like the expenses that we approve and go through the board? Is that what you're referring to when you say other board approved expenses?
You're talking about this line item that I highlighted, blue?
No, I think you mentioned it like on the 2022 expenditures. You said something about board approved expenses or
I think
something.
you're probably talking about this, the UDR type stuff.
Possibly.
Yes. So now, for example, when you guys approve, now anything else, like let's just say the hazardous tree fund, we went out and spent like another $10,000 in hazardous trees, it would get commingled into, you could go to the ACC individual income statement and see the GL where it would add to, but then it gets basically summarized into this regulatory compliance line item on the expenses. And this is a part of operations. So this is just regular operations right here.
Right. Okay.
Now down here in UDR, this is stuff that the board has specifically authorized to be like an expenditure that can be paid for out of the UDR account. And then, so when we start, like if and when the board approves that 60,000 UDR request that you guys just got through voting on, then I'll add another line item, like probably down here that will say hazardous tree removal. And then if we went out and spent 60,000 immediately on it, you'd see the 60,000 expenditure down here.
Okay. I think it was somewhere else, but I'll just watch for it because I think we flew by it so fast I can't. Oh, if I find it again, I'll let you know.
Actually,
but thank you.
I think maybe you meant here.
I honestly don't remember.
Actually,
I'll let you know if I find it.
Now I'm really positive you meant right here.
Sure.
If you say so, Joel.
Yeah, sure.
It was either, or the last thing I could possibly point out is the cash would come out of right here.
Just because I really don't remember, I'm gonna table that one. But thank you for trying so hard. I really don't remember.
But the good thing is, it can only be one of those line items because we've now run out of UDR places.
Okay.
Any more questions for Joel about the January financials? Thank you for your thorough explanation, for your questions so far, Jessica and Callie.
I'm going to take it off screen share.
If in the absence of no more questions.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Callie's hand is still up, but that was from earlier.
No questions, Richard?
No further questions from the committee. I will open the floor up to community questions. It looks like we have 2 community members in our audience. And if John can rejoin us there.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and bring Linda on over. She's got her hand raised here. There you go, Linda. You can unmute when you're ready.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I have a weird question. So last year, we did a $40,000 request for hazard trees. We'll deal with that first. And I see that we spent it all. And if Sonia remembers correctly, She and I, when this was all brought up, were concerned because there was no list, no verification. It was just, here, we're going to take out some trees. And we said, you can't spend it all until we find out what are you going to spend it on. I don't remember, and I didn't leave the board until November, that we ever resolved that, but we spent all the money.
My recollection was that we were supposed to get list,
Yes.
and
We did
I don't think it happened, Linda.
We didn't.
Hey, I'm just that now. I'm going to take you back in time even further to 2019. And I don't know if that's been closed. It was still open in the last thing that was presented to you guys. That half of the money, it was also for hazardous trees. And they were listed. They went out and got the bids for each individual tree. And there's still $8,202 in there of work that's never been done. The bids can't be good anymore, I doubt. But has anybody reached out to these people or seen if these trees have ever been taken down?
Sonia,
keep
looks like
asking
Sonia
that.
has her hand up, and then Jessica, can you lower your hand unless you have another question? That way I can keep track of whose questions are unanswered. Thank you. Sonia, did you have a response for
I do.
Linda?
George actually has been going out to all of those locations. And so we should, at the next board meeting, have, he's been compiling all of the lists. They, as you know, Linda, they weren't well maintained, and a lot of them weren't accurate. And so he has specifically been going to those locations on those older, like the 2019. I can't tell you 100%. I know some of them had fallen on their own. Some of them have been taken down either by the owners or Sudden Valley. Some of them were still standing. I can't tell you exactly which ones are which. I don't have that list, but he's compiling that. And it would have been here tonight, but we'll have that next week at the board meeting so that those numbers can start to reconcile. But we're looking at trying to close that out, is what I understand.
I hope so,
and we'll have a better idea.
the capital request actually had like pages of information of what each individual tree to come down, where it was located, and what the bids were, and what they got 3 bids and what bid they accepted on them all. So I'm cool with that. So my question, I guess, to Joel is, so you gave a number of how much money altogether we spent on hazard trees last year. And is that out of operations, or is that a combination of what we spent out of operations plus this 40K in the UDR?
No, actually, you're right, Linda. That number was strictly from operations.
So then we've actually spent more than that if the UDR is still an additional $40,000, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, then I have one last bizarre question for you, and you're going to go, oh, Linda, I hate you. So we have an emergency operating capital account, and there's 300-some thousand in there. Back right before you started back here, we transferred into a payroll company. They made us put up a bond for our payroll. For like 100,000, is that still sitting in there committed of that money?
No.
Or have they
No,
since released it?
Yeah, that was released.
They released it. Okay,
Yeah,
because
it's released,
nobody ever says it. It just
Yeah.
says,
That was released a little while ago.
yeah, because it never shows up in the financials.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know what you mean. It doesn't show up as, like under the mitigation assignment of savings account. It was just in there. But the good thing is that's released.
It's like once we had a history with them enough to know that we would always meet our payrolls, they released the bond.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, because like I reached out to HKP and they drafted a letter and said, gave permission for the bank to release it.
Yeah, because that was a biggie, and it's something that always hides.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I got.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. All right. we've got one other person with us. We can see if she wants to raise her hand to come on over, or we're good for the evening. I think we're probably okay.
Okay. Jessica had one more question.
I actually have two requests. The first request is that I'm finding it really hard to track down all the items and all the different locations for the finance committee. I'm wondering, can we get one PDF packet that has everything with numbered pages?
Are you talking about the financial statements?
No, I'm talking about the whole thing.
The whole packet.
One place, the financials are in another place, the minutes are in another place. Capital requests are in another place. I'm wondering, can we get one?
Do you follow my link, Jessica, when I send it to the page?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
And
get Joel's stuff, in PDF, and then I go to the web and I look somewhere else for the minutes, and then I look somewhere else for all the addendums, that kind of stuff. So
they should all be on the finance page, but they should be
No.
different links.
yeah, no, it's if you go to the finance, it has the
I think she's going to the second page.
the
There's two
financial
pages.
statements, and then it has the 2 capital requests, and then the minutes are somewhere else. So, and I found them today, but I couldn't find them tonight. But I had already reviewed them. So I'm just making, you can deny or accept it either way.
No, I think that's a great idea. The only issue is that they're coming from different people. We generally try to put them in one packet, but this past week we had some challenges with a down server and some late additions. I'm gonna try to resend the link to the page to you because I would like to know what you see. Because when I go to the finance page, all the links are on that one finance page, but I do know that things do get posted in other places. John, are you aware of there being different places that they're posted? Because I try to send the link to the finance page. Are there other places where they're located where Jessica's kind of going on a treasure hunt for?
So what I ended up doing later today is I went to the Sudden Valley Community Association page.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Board of Directors. I went to committee minutes. And I scrolled down and looked for 316 meeting. So I don't know. All I'm asking is that it's one packet, all in one place. And if that's not doable, that's fine. I'm just making that request. The second request I have is, can we have on the agenda for next month a review of the capital loan? When we got it, what was the original amount, what the interest is that we're paying, what the terms are. So often commercial loans balloon after a certain period of time. And what's our interest rate? Is it a fixed rate or is it, prime +2? And the reason I'm asking this is that we're paying, it looks like $4,500 a month. Does that sound right, Joel, in interest?
Probably pretty close. The interest rate, well, I know the interest rate is 4.62% to be exact. And it's scheduled to be done in 20.
We don't have to talk about it tonight. Just wondering if we could have it on the agenda for next month. But the reason why I'm asking is that we're paying then in that case about $54,000 a year in interest. And we're only gathering about $10,000 a year from those money market accounts. And I'm just wondering if it would be a wise thing to consider paying off that loan and reserving $40,000 in cash for other purposes.
So I think that is best left till next meeting because there's some additional flood related expenses that are going to have to come up soon to the community, and that's going to impact that'll impact your take on whether or not we should address that, Jessica. I think
address what?
Whether or not we pay off that loan, because we do have some additional expenses coming up that we need to discuss as a community, as a finance committee, as a board, as a community.
Yeah. And I just wanted just want to be clear and know if we're willing to, bleed a little cash for the sake of expediency, I'm doing that.
I will make a note and to have that discussion, to look over that. That is a duty of the finance committee, is to look at our finances and see of ways that we can cut cost if possible. And if that is something that when we put all of our heads together, makes sense to do, I think it would be a good discussion. Are there any other comments for our meeting tonight?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Linda brought up the $8,000 amount that's on the UDR for, it was like a prior capital request UDR for tree removal. And yeah, she's right. There is like about $8,000 left in that. And that's actually a part of the obligated amount that's in UDR. So because in UDR, the obligated amount is about $57,484, and about 8,000 of that is what Linda was talking about, meaning, so it's like that amount we could just decide, just deem that to be gone in a sense. We're not going to do that. And the obligated amount actually would drop by about that amount anyways.
Well, thank you, Linda, for bringing that up and reminding us that that money was there.
Well, no. So the actual, we'll have the list because, like I said, George went to verify those, and so we'll know for sure if anything, as far as anything can be applied,
Right.
any of that money can be applied to any of those trees that are outstanding or that have been cut recently.
And we'll talk about that at the board meeting next week,
Yeah.
then, right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Is there anything else from the committee for this meeting? Well, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I thank you, Jacob, for being a good steward and looking at the long-range planning survey to help frame your decisions. And Jessica and Callie for your wonderful questions. Jean did tell me she had to leave early. And thank you, Sonia, for your input. And Joel for your thorough covering of our finances. And I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:59 p.m.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Bye.
All right, thank you.